Thanks, Mike.
Hey everyone, welcome to SVT time again. I stopped counting, so just welcome to SVT time. I am your host, Dino with my ever fearless co-host, Mr. Dom Liberati. Today is a very special day for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have Jerry Jemmott visiting us today and talking with us. I changed my method here, Jerry, so I won't go through all the accolades because we're going to talk.
Yeah, keep the groove going.
Yeah, keep on the line.
And I say very special because obviously Jerry's here with us. Legendary bass player. He's played with everybody. So many accolades and achievements. We've got a million questions for you, but also I'm going to jump right in here because the significance of this day is today is the day, April 15th. And Jerry, tell me how long ago it was, but today was the actual day to this date that you met Aretha and recorded Think and a whole bunch of other great hits. Correct?
Yes, you're right. And, like I said before, my chronology is really sometimes off. It was actually 1968. You did the math. That was 53 years ago.
Yep. Wow.
I'm thinking about Montreux when I joined a band 30 years later. That sticks in my head. But we recorded, that was an unusual session. I was called to observe the session. I might play, I might not play. I was booked like 2 weeks before. And Martin Luther King was killed, assassinated, and they didn't change the plans. And I arrived at the studio at 10 o'clock, and they were already in the studio working because I was just, usually you get to the studio, you're there half an hour early, okay? But because I was just to observe the session, I might play, I might not play, I came there around, close to 10 o'clock, and the studio was packed. Aretha and the band from Muscle Shoals are already in the studio, and they're working on this one song, and she's playing this intro over and over, and they're going to the song, and I immediately, when I heard the first time, I said, oh, this is what it's supposed to be, but they went someplace else with it. And from 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, they were still playing the same song. And at 2 o'clock, Jerry Wexler, who had called me to come down to observe the session, he said, go in there and see what you can do. And so I went in there and I bought my bass. This is not the same bass, but I got it a year later in 1969. I recorded The Thrill Is Gone with this bass. But that bass was stolen in the Ada Horace recording.
Wow.
There were a few places they had an Ampeg amp where you can just walk in the studio and plug in and play, without having to bring an amplifier with you, which that was the norm back then. So I went in and 2 takes, it was over. I told them the intro, what I heard, because we could play something like, let me send some sound up here. Am I sound on?
Just hearing you.
Oh, no, okay. Forget about the sound then. Anyway, she played an introduction. She played the same introduction all morning long. And never went any place. They would go someplace, but then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I had heard this, hearing the song in my head. I said, okay, this is what it needs, was this a lead-in. And so when she finished playing, I played the lead-in, and I started playing the country bass line, and everybody fell into place. And take it, these guys are from Alabama. One in their head was a country song. They were trying to make it rhythm and blues. I played it, I played in 2. And that sealed the deal. Tommy picked up a guitar and started playing bluegrass bebop on the guitar because Tommy Cogbill was a tremendous music. This Tommy Cogbill, he was one of my heroes. He made all the Wilson Pickett records, all the Memphis records. I mean, Tommy was a monster, and he was the oldest guy in the room among the musicians. So he always had that credibility, and but nothing happened with that over those 3 hours in the morning. So at any rate, he said after we finished the song, he said, "Okay, you stay." I got up to leave. He said, "No, you stay here." Okay. And that was it. I went from one song to another, and I finished out the week.
Wow.
Playing bass, and he played guitar sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, we all know he is an amazing bass player. we all know, like, as bass players, Tommy Cogbill was
monster.
Monster bass player. We didn't realize, at least myself, I shouldn't say we, I didn't realize he was actually a session guitarist as well. I always viewed him as a bass player.
He plays good. He played guitar. You hear him on Think.
Yeah.
He's tearing it up playing bluegrass bebop, basically. That's what I call it.
Bluegrass bebop.
Yeah, bebop bluegrass. I mean, it was like this. It fits so perfectly. Yeah. It was like ever so they think this awakening, their natural, all their heritage came out because it actually was a country song. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Now, you were living in New York at the time as a session player in New York City, correct?
Yeah, I was living up in the Bronx.
Okay.
And they would call me if somebody didn't show up.
No
kidding. Which would happen sometimes.
Wow. Now is that how you got your start? Just
Kinda.
as a musician in New York, just getting calls for sessions?
Well, I started out, playing. I've been a professional musician since the age of 12. So I've been playing upright bass and classical and orchestras and marching bands and Latin bands, jazz bands, club bands, ballroom bands. So I switched over. So it was, I was used to getting telephone calls, basically. That was the thing. And in fact, I was living in the Bronx with my mother at the time, and they called me to do a session that nobody showed up for at 10 o'clock in the morning. Aretha Franklin called me, because I've been in the studio before, and he knew my work. And plus, Jerry Ragavoy, who was Jerry Wexler's kind of partner, who had the Hit Factory, they would share music.
Okay.
So Jerry had heard my work through Jerry, and then I had done some stuff with the Rascals, I think, that year. It's kind of, my chronology is kind of messed up, but that wasn't the first time I'd been in Atlantic. I've been there several times. I knew the drill, where to park, what to do. But Aretha called me because somebody didn't show up for a Wilson Pickett session one morning, And that was my first introduction working with Wilson Pickett. Okay. And the song was Deborah. It was he sang the first part in Italian and the rest of it in English. And they shipped it to Italy the very next day, basically.
Wow.
And from that point, he started touring in Italy, forever. It kind of opened the door for a lot of people.
Right. Wow. That's just you saying, Jerry Wexler called me for this session. I'm like, Jerry Wexler called, this is all history. This is like.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, he called me and said, you might play, you might not play. I said, well, but you get paid. And 2 sessions, booked me for 2 sessions, and that was it.
Wow.
You never know.
But they're happy they called you in.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're happy they called you in, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, it was the best part of it. I mean, I love Aretha from the time she was playing with Columbia, recording a Columbia artist. So I was very familiar with her work. And I look forward to the opportunity of working with her, playing with her, recording with her, because I recorded her sister, Irma. We got a Grammy nomination for A Piece of My Heart the previous year.
Wow.
So I was familiar with the her music, the whole idea, and I was looking. It was a great opportunity. I was, glad that they didn't quite make it. I was able to, demonstrate my ability. And at that point, she offered me the job to join her traveling band. And I said, no, I'm kind of locked into being a studio musician. I appreciate the offer though. But 3 years later, I got a call from Ken Curtis. He said, listen, we got this great idea. Me and Jerry Wexler came up with this idea to go to the Fillmore and take Aretha's music to the Flower Children and make this thing happen. This is like in 1970s calling me now. This is going to happen in 71. So I'm saying, well, I really don't want to go on the road. When it happened last time I ran the road with you, I lost all my work. So he said, yeah, it's okay. But, it's going to be Billy Preston. It's going to be Purdy and Cornell and Aretha. I said, well, damn, let's have some fun,
Right? Wow.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. I think it has to do with the bassist being the timekeepers, because like you were saying, that intro wasn't happening, and then the second you threw down one thing, everything else kind of fell.
Everything came into place. As soon as I played that bum. Yeah. And they use the same thing to go to the modulation, from the modulation to go to the key of B.
Yeah.
So it was the glue that put the whole thing together.
Man, I got to ask you this. It's like when you were recording this and when you were making music with Aretha and all these great artists. Was at that point, like, did it go through your head, like how you were shaping what we listened to for as modern music? Like you were making history back then, and you still make history today, obviously, or was it just a gig at that point where it's like, man, I got called for a session, I get to go play bass with some great musicians, like what goes through your head in something like that?
Well, it's kind of convoluted story. I was in a band called the Mixed Birds.
Okay.
It was put together by Alfie Wade Jr. He was a recording engineer in the 60s in New York. And I was playing upright then. And one of the musicians in the band was Richard Dubin. Billy Cobham was in the band. Frank Mitchell was in the band. A lot of kids from different neighborhoods came put them together. And Richard Dubin was an older cat. He was 2 years older than me. He was a white kid with receding hairline. But he looked like he was 35. He was only 16, but he talked like he was 40. Okay, so he hung out and came back with all these kind of stories about how the session musicians would go from here to there, and he knew Clark Terry, Neil Hinton, Richard Davis. He would rattle off these names, all the trumpet players. And so I said, yeah, I want to do that. That was it. So I was 14 then. And so I kind of put it on the back burner, and I'm still playing upright. And then came the point in time where I didn't like what the was playing. The younger musicians I was playing with on upright, they were in this Miles Davis kick, and they wanted to turn their back on the audience and not observe what they wanted to hear, but somebody would come and request one song, and we knew the song, but they played something different anyway. And I said, this is a bunch of crap. And I'm going to get me electric bass and play in that band over there. Hey, the calypsos and the Latin and all the the funky stuff. I'm going to do it, but I hated the sound of the instrument, so I had to get over that, and I had to work my way into getting a sound I liked.
Yeah.
So I let the studio thing go. I just started playing and doing gigs around town, basically. That's how I didn't even think about working in the studio, and then I started getting studio calls, and that was it. But somewhere along the line, I tell you, I was listening to the radio, and I didn't like what I was hearing. I said, I got to show them what to play. And I only said it one time, and that was it. That was probably when I first picked up the electric bass, and I didn't, I just put it out of my head, and that's worked on my craft, because the first gig I had was at a sorority house on 142nd Street, and they had 3 bands, fortunately. Because the band I was playing, I couldn't play the parts I learned on electric. I could not play them live. I was too paranoid, whatever. I couldn't get together. But Cheryl was there from Pucho's band with his upright. So I played my first gig on electric on upright. I had to go home, work a couple of more weeks to get it together. Yeah, it was not as easy as I thought it would be. It was the spacing and all that and everything. So I worked on it enough to be able to get work and do studio work, which I found was available. And I started I got a job at the bank. I was doing gigs like at 1 o'clock in the morning and getting to the bank at 7 o'clock and sleeping in the parking lot before my shift started at 8 o'clock. So it was like that. Yeah. So you work your way up. You work your way up the chain, doing demos. I did a lot of demos.
Okay.
The Hit Factory all over the little towns, the Allegro, A1, the Brill Building, it's popping back in the 60s.
Yeah.
There was, we would have books from sessions from 10 a.m. to 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. When I did BB sessions, they were like 7 to 10, 11 to 2.
Wow.
That was a session.
Okay. Now, who were you looking for electric players at that point? Like, who were some of your influences that you latched onto?
Tommy, James Jameson.
Yep.
Jameson. Chuck was in my neighbor. He would play. I heard Chuck playing with King Curtis.
Okay.
Before I joined the band, in fact, he recommended me for the gig with Curtis.
Okay.
Who else? Wilbur Bascom.
Yeah.
We were playing, we were bumping heads all the time. Yeah. Wilbur's a fantastic player. I mean, there's so many great players that people don't hear about. Mervyn Bronson. I mean, these are people that were around. Not that I copied them, or they were very good musicians. But I really didn't listen to anybody because first of all, I couldn't hear well, so I couldn't tell what they were playing anyway. So I went my own road to play what I could hear. That was always the case when I started playing upright. So I was always hooked into creating something of my own and not necessarily playing what somebody else played. And to me, to copy somebody was particularly hard because I couldn't hear very well. So that was off the table from day one. So
yeah. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned. I mean, Wilbur Bascom is a name you don't hear mentioned quite frequently, but like you said, an amazing player.
Yeah,
played on
tons of records.
Yeah, so many great records too. You know, man.
You had mentioned at first that you didn't like the sound of the electric bass. Was there anything like? Can you point to anything specific that you were like not digging at first?
Well, my first experience was when I was playing at the Comic Club at a jam session when I was playing upright. I was about 15 to 16, and the national ceremonies was he played the bass and he would talk jokes, and it sounded so bad when he played it. And then when I picked it up, he left it. I picked it up one time. I said, "Hey, it really is bad. It's the nature of the instrument. It's not his fault." At that point, I wasn't pissed off at him anymore. It was more the instrument. I said, "I'll never play this," and that was it. I was 16 then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can imagine starting on upright and going to electric at the time. It's like you don't have that. You're feeling the upright resonate when you're playing it. You don't have that.
The body. You miss everything. You're out. You're exposed. When I had the upright, I was behind the bass.
Yeah.
And being shy and insecure, that was great. And then being in the back of the bed, that fit me perfect. I said, I want to do that. That's why I chose the bass. I didn't want to be out front. I didn't want to be heard. That is something for me that I enjoyed what the bass was doing. I said, I can do that. I think I can do that. I can learn to do that, hopefully.
Yeah.
And of course, it was harder than I thought, but as time comes, you get better, you get stronger.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny because like Dom and I'm pretty sure Dom as well, but I started on electric and then moved over to upright.
Same, yeah.
Right.
So I don't have that same reference point as cats that started out on upright and moved over to electric. It must have been a completely different experience for an upright player to go to electric than it is for an electric player to go to upright.
Oh, it is. James,
like, oh man, what's this big boat that I gotta manage here? So yeah,
James started that way, as I did, and Rufus Reed started like you did. Rufus Reed started on electric and went to upright.
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
And I advise people to do that because you can hear the notes. Because I can't hear. So therefore, the electric, every note is perfect. You got frets.
Yeah.
So when you go to the upright, you know what it's going to sound like already.
Right.
You're not pushing that much. So I recommend you going from electric to upright to help your hearing and sense of learning music is easier.
Yeah.
And I start in the middle of the fret and go back to the hard part. Start where you can get used to the intervals and the idea of knowing the music. Then play it where it's hard in the first position.
Yeah.
See how that works.
Yeah.
Now, it's a mixed bag of things that I do. It's coming upon the student. But basically, it's about being, knowing the music helps a lot.
Yeah, and being intricate with it, like you say, knowing it,
knowing it as opposed to guessing. I did a lot of guessing back in the day, believe me. But I would go for it. That's why Jaco liked my playing, because I would go for it. I'll take a chance. Play something completely off the wall, that nobody's played before, and make it work within the context of a song.
Yeah.
Yep. Just see how far
that one song.
Yeah. That's man. So all right. I'm just trying to put things in time perspective here. So would you say your first big gig was with King Curtis after like you were doing all your New York stuff and session work? Was that kind of like your first break into like a national gig? Okay.
Yeah. But I had perfect. But when I was working with Mercer Ellington. I was in his band.
Okay.
I was in Pucho and the Latin Soul Brothers,
Yep.
a big New York band. So I was already in front of the audience, and it's just another stage, basically, in that sense, but a different style of music and a different the audience was different.
Yeah.
The work was different. I was on the road touring the Chitlin circuit, as opposed to being in New York, in the Chitlin circuit in New York, because there's one everywhere.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I took the show on the road, and ironically, when I started with him was during the in '67, during the all the riots, Newark, Buffalo. We hit all the cities where there had been trouble.
Wow.
During that tour. So that was my big moment, actually, my first big major moment where I was on the road, living the life of a musician, dealing with all the things you have to deal with on the road, as opposed to being comfortable, leaving your house to go to a session or to a gig, coming back home in your own bed. It's a whole different thing going on.
Yeah. How many on average, like, to your recollection, how often were you on the road back in those days? Were you like full time, like sleep at home one night every couple of months or something, or?
Well, it didn't last long. My road gig with King Curtis came to an abrupt end when he released Memphis So Stew, and I wasn't on the record, and he had promised me record dates. Took the job. Yep. So I left the band. That's Tommy on the original. That's Tommy Cogbill.
Okay. Right.
And I joined Lionel Hampton's band. And so I went on the road with him. We were going to Japan. And that job was canceled. So I said, hell with this. I'm going to stay in New York and make records. That's it.
Yeah.
This road stuff, I tried, and when I went with King Curtis and came back, I had been doing sessions already. And people who called me later said, well, I thought you were on the road with King Curtis. That's why I never called you anymore. So this is what happens when you go on the road, back then. Now people go on the road all the time. Everybody has to multitask and you have multiple jobs. It's a different world, especially out here in California.
Yeah. But that was, I remember, talking to a lot of studio guys in those, like, that's why guys wouldn't go on the road, because they'd lose all their studio work.
They'll lose your spot.
There's always another person that's willing to step in the studio position,
Always.
But yeah, like you say, nowadays, if you bring a laptop and a little interface, you can do sessions in your hotel room these days.
That's true. That's true. I just got a new one.
No, that
you can use this one. I got it from Sweetwater's. You can use it in the field. It has a battery connection. You can use it with a battery.
There you go. Yeah. Now, have you been doing a lot of sessions while you've been home, Jerry?
Yeah. Mostly on Pro Tools. My Pro Tools went down. That's why I got this.
Okay.
I picked up this up from Sweetwater's, but it works just as well, for what I'm doing. But I do a fair amount, not as much as I'd like to, but I'm available.
There you go.
And I got two working wings now.
That's right. You just had shoulder surgery recently too.
Both of them.
How that works, trying to sling a bass on either shoulder. Yeah.
Forget about a bass. How about zipping up your pants? How about getting dressed?
I don't know.
Okay. How about putting deodorant on? Washing up. Putting the belt on. All these things. You don't know it until you lose it. And you're used to doing it all your life. All of a sudden, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Or you got to stretch it out. You got to do isometrics. You got to, you have to rebuild it.
Man. I feel that shoulder surgery is like a rite of passage for serious upright players, because I feel like everyone that I've heard or known, they eventually have to get shoulder surgery.
With a rotator cuff, mine didn't come from playing upright. They come from a car accident and other injuries from my right shoulder. But I've heard that, you have to, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
And the doctor told me when I went in for this left arm, he said, you'll be able to play the upright again in a year.
Oh.
Ain't happened yet.
Really?
I couldn't put my arm on my hip until like July. I got the surgery in August. It's going to be 7 months to put my left arm on my hip.
Okay.
Now my right arm, this took 3 months. Left arm, it took 7 months. The difference is amazing between, different things going on. But that's the body. The body's a miracle. This miraculous work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, they say, like, I've never had shoulder surgery. Obviously, I had my back surgery a few years ago, but everybody says shoulder surgery is some of the hardest. It's one of the hardest surgeries to get through because you can't even just you can't sleep on your back half the time because you have to be in a position that, it's just not an easy surgery to have.
Well, you have to sleep on your back. You can't sleep. You have to sleep in a chair for like weeks. You can't even get in your bed.
Oh, okay.
And I still can't sleep on my right side. I can sleep on my left side, sleep on my back, but you have to be asleep with a sling on. It's like a lot of it's very delicate. Mine was the reverse. So it was when other things fail, they give you this one. This is my first one though. So anyway, it's rehab is forever.
Yeah.
I'm committed to it. Doing the exercise in isometrics where you just squeeze the muscles.
Yeah.
That's and rest and ice.
Yeah.
These are the things that work. And I didn't go to physical therapy this year for rehab because of the COVID.
Yep.
So I had to do it all at home. But I was aware from doing the left arm what to do with the right arm. This healed much faster. But I'm still having little cysts. They couldn't replace all 4. They had 4. You got 4 tendons. He can only replace 3. So
wow.
I've only improved 1 tendon. But it's no pain.
Yeah.
No pain.
I'm
That's the thing. I miss pain.
Awesome.
What'd you say, Dom?
That he picked up that big earlier, so all right.
Oh yeah, this is I can do it.
There you go.
And working the lower register when I play, I try to stretch it out like this.
Yeah.
So as far as possible, and it gets hard, I slow it down. You can easily play it up here, but you get back here, it gets harder. So I'm stretching both shoulders at the same time with the bass. So my doctor says that's the best therapy.
There you go.
I'm doing it as opposed to lifting weights, and it works.
Yeah.
When I'm just playing the bass, believe me, I'm sore at this point.
Yeah.
But lets me know that it's working.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's almost like the story with Les Paul. He was in the car accident. He had his arms set at a 90-degree angle, so he could.
I've heard that. Yeah. Still play.
You see pictures of the Les Paul after the accident. I mean, his arm is set just like that so that he could play.
So we could play.
And the doctors said, that's kind of the best therapy. That there's no better exercise than doing what you're used to doing.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's so connected to the shoulder. That's why I know when I was injured in 72, it spelled the end. That's this decreasing because all the power that I had from the upright just diminished. It ran out because all my juice came from playing upright. And then it's like after a while, year after year, diminished. I had to go into like more knowledge. You don't have to work as hard. So you kind of you balance it out. Between the more skill, I've developed a way of playing where I pivot as opposed to jumping around from position to position. Okay. I pivot. I developed that along the way to help me. We do what we got to do to keep playing, man.
Yeah. Now I've known you for a while, Jerry, but I also know you take very good care of yourself too in diet and exercise, and like you say, you're doing your shoulder exercises, but I know you eat well too. You know what I mean? You take care of your body on the inside as well. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it too.
It does. I got sick when I was like in 1969, 1970, like continuing bronchitis over and over again. And at that point, I changed my life. Like that saved my life. Being that sick. I got exposed to the rain one time. I was doing a gig. I rode my bass across town with I had a pack with beer coming home from a gig.
Wow.
I got wet. I remember going up the steps with the bass full of beer cans in the back of the case. And from that moment on, I never got rid of that cold. Took me 10 years later. I'm still suffering, so I thought this is enough. And so I finally went into getting natural treatment to get rid of the continuous cold to turning to bronchitis once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year. I said, I can't, this is too much. So I went to a doctor. He said, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got a lot of mucus. You got to get the mucus up. Okay. So he said, lay over the side of the bed and cough up as much as you can. And we don't know much about the lungs that we knew 500 years ago. This is what he told me. He was the head of the pulmonary department. Okay. So after 2 days and coughing up, nothing came up. I found a better choice with natural herbs, basically, detoxing herbs and you name it. I went through the whole thing, becoming a vegetarian. So that saved my life, actually.
That's incredible.
That saved my life.
Yeah. It kind of goes on in the end,
you got a pretty bad echo going on.
Is that me that's echoing? Hang on. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Echo cancellation. Is that any better?
It's way better.
Oh, okay. There we go. That was me then. I like just hearing myself. Like I'm in a ballpark. But no, it does. It goes hand in hand, especially, our instrument of choice, whether you're playing upright or electric, it's a physical instrument, just like a drummer, it's physical. Mm-hmm. Add to the fact that you're doing that every day. And in a lot of cases, you're on the road, you're traveling, you're not, sometimes we're not eating right. Sometimes, sometimes we're self-abusing ourselves at night. We have a couple, 2 extra, bourbons or beers or whatever our drink of choice is. But taking care of our bodies is very important. A lot of people, I think, especially the younger generation, I know when I was young, I took it for granted, and now, like I said, the first 50 years of my life, I tried killing myself. The next 50, I'm trying to save myself. So, we gotta take care of ourselves,
Well, that proves you're human.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I fall, I feel it now. Oh man. Yeah, so hey, I just want to everybody that's watching here, by all means, guys, feel free to post any questions that you have for Jerry in the comments here. Sean, I got it right this time.
Yeah.
It's not Naeus, it's Sean.
Right.
Do you still have that fretless from that video with Jaco?
Ben Bomila was the lucky recipient of that bass. I had to sell it eventually. So it's now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was made by Abe Rivera, and he did very well as a result of making it for me. He became a consultant for Yamaha, which worked out well for him. And I got a great bass, and Jaco got something to play that was fretless on the video that was planned the night before. So everything worked out well.
I'm putting my headphones in here. Hold on. Okay.
I think we're echoless now, hopefully.
Yeah. It's something going on with my monitors here, but you guys can hear me okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's funny. I'm glad Sean brought that up, because that actually, a lot of people don't, back in the day, and I forget who the company was that did Jaco's video, but, before YouTube and social media and all this, there were these videos, VHS tapes, instructional tapes from artists, Jaco, Stanley Clark, Stu Ham. I know Jerry had it.
Olin Roth was doing them.
That's right. Was it Hot Licks?
Hot Licks. In fact, I had done one for Hot Licks already before Jaco.
Yeah.
Drummers Collective was the company that did the Jaco video. Drummers Collective.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did the interview for Jaco's video. Like you guys had a rapport in that video. That was like very, I can't think of the right word for it, but I mean, it was almost like you guys could see into each other's brains at that point, you know?
Yeah, we could. It was it's ironic, you know, I always tell my students, get into the life of your people that you like and find out about their history and, you know, kind of determine what's in their life that maybe might be comparable to your life, then why you gravitate to their music, you know, get into that and see what, you know. And Jaco and I were a lot alike. Yeah. That's basically, I was fighting for my life, playing the bass, and anybody like, you know, everybody likes to see somebody fighting or, you know, going for it, basically.
Yeah.
And that was my mentality. And I wasn't as secure as he was, but we had the same ideas. And I know a lot of troubles he had, I experienced as, you know, coming up. So we kind of like, you know, were mutual admiration, but a lot of things that we had in common that just came out that way. And when we met face to face, we were able to like, yeah, I know you, you know me, let's do this. You know, you need help, I need help, let's help each other.
Yeah.
So that's what it came out. That's what it basically came from.
Okay.
And we worked on it for a couple of years to get it done. And finally got the call, okay, we going tomorrow. And at that point, I wrote out 20 questions.
Okay.
And then we did the interview.
Yeah. Wow. So, man, let me ask you, like, obviously Jaco changed everybody's lives, you know, like what was your thought when you first heard Jaco come on the scene? Was it like, man?
You know, well, Jimmy Tyrell sent me the record. Jimmy Tyrell was the person that I kind of like, he moved out of being a studio musician. Him and Bob Bushnell, they were the primary black cats who were playing electric in the studio. And they moved up the ladder, basically, and I was able to get in at some point. And in 1974, he sends me this record. I had moved several times since then, but he found me and I got a record in the mail. And wow, Jaco, you know what I'm saying? First listening was, this cat did the work. You know, he did the work that, you know, I would never put that much time into it. I wouldn't play Donna Lee. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't put that much, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and beyond that, you know, it's like one thing after another. And then I find out he's reports that he's a poor imitation of me. So it's like, okay, let's get this on. So I meet him 3 years later through a mutual friend and from place in South America. Oh boy, it's a place in South America, off of Brazil, Suriname.
Okay.
He was from Suriname. He knew Jaco well, so he gave Jaco my number, and that's how we got together.
Wow.
And the rest is history. After 2 years going back and forth, and we were teaching together at a place called Sound of Joy Music, up the street from where I lived.
Okay.
And that was in preparation to the video. And let me see, 85, 81. He came in 84. We got the video done, I think, in 85 or 86.
Okay.
And I think he was going in 87.
Yeah, 87.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
Man.
it's quite influential, you know, in my life as a person, as a musician, as a friend.
Yep.
And to be able to help him was really an honor for me to help him.
Yeah.
We were talking about that from this. You said when you first switched from upright to electric, you didn't at first like the sound. Did you, when you saw fretless bass or when you were playing fretless, did it feel more at home coming from upright, or was it even weirder?
It was weird. The notes were close together, and it still wasn't the sound. It wasn't, you know, you can't replace an acoustic sound. So I had taken the frets out to experiment with it. I was originally, when the record was made, it was fretted. Mm-hmm. And I had to take the frets out in preparation, actually leading up to Jaco interview. I did this the year before, I think, because I knew he didn't have an instrument. And And so I had done that, and I experimented with it, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And after we did the video, I put the frets back in.
Okay.
Because it didn't. There was some spots on it that didn't like really sing well. There was some dead spots, you know, that the frets were compensating, and then it was stolen. Oh, it was stolen, and it came back all wrangled up, and that's why I put the frets back in.
Okay.
Because it couldn't remain fretless anymore. They needed the frets for stability.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, in that video, in the beginning of the video, Jaco was setting up his jazz bass with a fretted neck. Was it one of his jazz basses? Because it showed him. Again, it's been a while since I seen the video, but I have a vision of him. He was screwing on a fretted maple neck to his jazz bass body, and I thought that was ironic that he would put a fretted bass on his jazz, and your bass was fretless. You know, I mean, it was almost like a reversal of roles at that time. It's like Jaco with a fretted bass. That's like.
Excuse me, my phone is.
I was going to say your ring is identical to mine. I thought it was
right. I got my wife. If she picks it up, it'll stop.
Is that wrestler?
Go right ahead. What's that, Tom?
Can you answer the phone?
On him? Is that a session right now?
Attention. If you or a loved one.
They're calling about your car warranty, aren't they?
I realized I was muted until now. That's awesome. I can't wait to ask him a little bit about some Ampeg gear and his first impression on, you know, going into some of those studios. I'm assuming those are all B15s.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure. At one point, Bass Player Magazine did an article just on all B15s. Like that was their issue. And I think they took quotes. Jerry had submitted some quotes, and oh my gosh, Chuck Rainey had offered some insight, like all the studio cats from New York and LA at the time that played in the studios, like yourself, Jerry, were playing. It was primarily, if you weren't going direct into the desk, they were running you through a mic B15. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Bass Club had Russ Cervantes, that name sounds familiar. They had a bass club, and they had the amps in the studios, Ampeg B15s with locks on them.
That's
so
right.
Unless you were a member, you had to bring your own amp.
Okay.
So that's the world I came into, and I wasn't a member. I started my own club. Me and Roland Martinez. In fact, he was at the studio with me when I was invited to do the session with Aretha in '68. He was my partner, so I took him with me, but with guests. You know, I bring a guest with me. Of course, the place was full of guests. Yeah. You know, that's in my book. Anyway, we had our own club, so we would bring out. We had I had a B18.
Okay.
I had a B18 and another B15, and we kind of strategically located them so we have access to them. But that was the standard. Yeah. That was the standard. I mean, it's portable. You can had wheels on it. You can flip out the head. It's great.
Yeah. How much was a B15 then? I'm trying to just like compare that to now. How much that would be?
Well, I probably got mine at the pawn shop. Let me see. Maybe I did. Maybe that's probably the only. That's probably I probably paid for it.
Okay.
Did you say? How much was it?
Yeah. I'm just curious.
I don't remember. I can't remember. Most of my instruments came out, including this one, came out the pawn shop.
Yeah.
I remember I probably bought that amp at Manny's, probably brand new, because I had flipped my Epitone flip top and my Zimgar bass. I got rid of them.
That's awesome.
Clyde Bullard asked me that question last night. He said, "You still got your first bass?" You couldn't remember what a Zimgar was. You know. I had a Zimgar bass and an Epiphone amp.
Yeah.
Wow.
And after a while, that was not getting it. You know, no wheels, was heavy, didn't sound great, and I bought the bullet and got a fender and a B-15, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Dom, I think B-15s like back in like mid '60s. I think like a full B-15 was like not even. I want to say like $300 or $400 for the entire rig.
Okay.
If that number sticks to my mind, I'll have to look it up in the history book.
Probably less than that, I think. I think
You
more
think
like
so, Jerry?
250.
Yeah. You know,
You mentioned pawn shop. I'm like, I would love to find an old B-15 at a pawn shop today.
Well, yeah, I probably did. Right. That's I said. I probably bought it from Manny's.
Yeah.
I probably bought it from Manny's. But I got the bases from all my bases out of the pawn shop.
Okay, man. And Manny, unfortunately, Manny's and that whole area is no longer what it.
Yeah.
It's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you So when did you move out of? When did you make the move from New York to L.A.?
After I left Mississippi.
Okay.
I moved from New
Via
York,
Mississippi,
to LA.
I missed
That's all right.
the whole area.
Listen, I had to do a credit report or something, and they had like 32 addresses on me. No, 23. And I couldn't remember half of them. I couldn't realize, they asked you these questions. Do you know this one? I said, that sounds kind of familiar. I think it came to 23. Wow. So I did 6 years in Mississippi before we came out here.
Okay.
And that was nice.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, that's again, I'm an East Coaster. I lived in LA for a bunch of years, and it's just it's a completely different, just growing up on the East Coast with the winters and the vibe and the food, and it's just so much different.
And there are no seasons here.
Yeah.
I mean, in Southern California, you don't see the goes from winter to spring to summer, whatever. That's like they kind of like it's a mixture where fall feels like spring and winter feels like summer. Sometimes it's like you can get a cold day, and it very rarely rains out here. I think we're in a drought now. We haven't had any measurable rain since October.
I was going to say, isn't it the rainy season, the fire season, the drought season, and then there's one other season in there that earthquake season, maybe?
Yeah.
Earthquake earthquake season is all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, I shouldn't say all the time, but we had one the other night, and they come. You never know when. And this is a new one they didn't know about. A lot of them they know about the faults. They discovered a new fault with this one, a 6.3. It was only like 2 miles from here.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But it didn't do. My driveway's different now. I park my car in the driveway, come in, I feel like a louder bump because it was, each time that happens, the bump gets louder because the ground shifts. So I know, okay, it happened.
Honey, it's time to move again.
Well, I don't know, man. Moving is tough.
Yeah. No,
Moving is tough, man. Especially cross country, down south, you lose stuff.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it again.
Hey, tell us about your book here. So you had mentioned your book, and I know you've been working on this for a while now, but tell us about this.
Well, it's my memoirs of the things some things I shared with you just now.
Yeah.
They go into more depth, obviously. It's about 200 pages, and it chronicles my childhood, growing up with traumatic brain injuries, my succession into becoming a musician, what the journey that gave me a life was music, so to speak. Not so to speak. In reality, that saved my life. I had no life as a child. Typical sufferer. And it chronicles my some of my trials and tribulations as a person. Not too many of them. And my professional career. But basically, it shows a spotlight on that you can overcome certain disabilities given the proper, given time, I say, and given the dedication. Because I was dedicated to playing the bass. That became my life. I had no life before that, so that was my lifesaver. That gave me a life, something to do. So it chronicles that, and I hope it's a message to people who suffered things, disabilities, that they're able to overcome them and be successful and work within them and work around them, and you're able to utilize them. Yeah. The fact that I couldn't hear, I had maybe developed my own style because I couldn't copy what anybody else was playing. I had no choice to come up with something new. I had no choice. I didn't have a choice, but I wanted to live. Everybody wants to live and express themselves. Right. This is my first opportunity in my life to express myself ever. Well, I was a tap dancer when I was 5. That was cool. Okay. I was at Carnegie Hall. I tapped at Carnegie Hall when I was 5. But it's great to be able to create something with your mind, your body, with tools to be creative. So it's part of the journey. We all have something that we have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Every one of us. We have something that we learn to hide stuff from birth. Okay? That's say no more. That's where it starts, and we never stop hiding stuff. We have to learn to tell the truth eventually and not hide stuff. And that's when the real revelation of your life comes in, what you can really do. And my truth was I got to play the bass and I got to show them what to play. That became my truth. I went from there, and that was it. I didn't hold on to it. I just did it. You have to, actually just do it and be fortunate to have in a position to have an opportunity to do it, because everybody doesn't have an opportunity to do things. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the opportunity, you have to make an opportunity or recognize an opportunity. Yeah.
Man, you mentioned like having trouble hearing other parts or hearing parts from records and everything. Do you feel like that? I mean, clearly that your way of listening was an advantage to you and was like your telling the truth about yourself, which blesses so many people. It's like, did you find on tours that it was like, did you have trouble hearing when you were playing with the band, or was that it was more of just like a picking out different things from a record?
Picking up from distinguishing notes. I would invariably be a third lower. I'd hear something a third lower or a third higher. I couldn't hear a half step here. I had to really hone in on knowledge to say, okay, it has to be this note because it's in this key. I know about playing jazz all the time. We play a lot of chromatic notes. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it wasn't that big of a deal. And so I had to lay down solid and make a recording specifically where it became even more important that I was within a certain amount of time to learn something and play it correctly, to learn something that I'm hearing, to learn what I'm hearing and then reproduce it. And it's a learning curve, and it's about how much time you have to do this. You're looking at the clock, so the pressure is on, the clock is on. So it made me commit to certain things I would not have committed had I had more time. I said, okay, I'll do this because I don't have time to do anything else, so I'll do this instead, and I hope it works. I'll play one note instead of 17 notes, and you have a strategy you go into. I would go into sessions sometimes saying, okay, I'm going to play as many notes a day as possible. Okay, no matter what it is, I'm going to see if I can tastefully play as many notes as possible. The next day I play as few notes as possible. So I'm playing games with myself to test my creativity to see what I can do and get away with and have to knuckle down and play what's on the paper or whatever. They usually wanted me to play what is in my head, so I had to be strategic and not be used. I thought I was being used at that point, so I had to say, okay, well, you're using me. I'll just play a thing. I'll play a lot of notes a day and not be really, into it. I'll just play a lot of notes. And then the next day I'll play few notes. And because depending upon who the producer was or the arranger was, somebody I knew, you take each situation differently. Yeah.
That's a sign of a true competitor. I know Michael Jordan used to do that stuff too. He'd say he'd create his own games because he was just like, I gotta keep it interesting.
yeah, exactly, and still be something that's valid.
Yeah,
keep it interesting. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Wow. I love sports too. I always vibe with sports. In fact, Connie Hawkins gave me this. Doing my teach for 5 elements and 5 elements and 5 what is it? 5 elements and 5 components of solar energy. I got them Connie Hawkins talking about a basketball player, a basketball team, where one person would be the soloist, the featured scorer, Everybody works at any different point. Another player could be the featured scorer.
Right.
So I took that in terms of being knowledge, skill, technique, mental fortitude, physical endurance, being those components, interject that as being the featured idea of your work. It's going to be about knowledge. It's going to be about skill. It's going to be about longevity, physical endurance, or your mental ability. Mm-hmm. Then you have your other components like the groove, creativity. You have knowledge. I have to read the book.
That's cool. It's like basically
technique
and kind of can operate in the same sense.
Yeah, it puts a good cohesive term to what you're thinking, so you can employ even one of the 5 components or elements at any given time to go to. And within a bar of music, within a phrase of music, within a chorus. You can use skill on the first bar, knowledge on the second bar, technique on the third bar, the groove on the fourth bar, creativity on the fifth bar. I mean, it's endless what you can do once you have aware that you have these tools to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that from Connie Hawkins.
Cool.
That's very deep.
Yeah.
Now
it works.
Is this touching on your? I know we want to talk about this too. Your social mission as a musician. Is this kind of getting into that, or is that a completely different thing?
Well, when you look at it that way, I call it solar energy. It really applies to like just the human genome, where these things affect any thing you want to do: knowledge, skill, technique, creativity, mental endurance, physical endurance, mental fortitude. These apply to anything, in terms of any mission that you want to do as an activist. You want to be able to have knowledge. You want to have a technique to employ the knowledge. You want to have a sense of timing. You want to be creative with your message. So, I mean, that applies to life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about life. In fact, my first book was called The Music in You, and I showed it to an engineer. He said he read through it. He said, I want to use this book called The Engineer in You, because the concepts were there for him to teach his engineering concept based on what I did in my book. So it's a valid process. It's a valid process of learning. It's alternative, but it's more about being aware of what you have to know and being able to get it in and file it away and retrieve it.
Mm-hmm.
You can file it away, but if you can't retrieve it, it ain't no good.
Yeah,
it's useless. These file cabinets over here, I haven't been in there in 5 years. I'm afraid to put anything in there. I'm gonna lose it. Oh, it's over there on the picture. Let me see. Oh, back here. Okay.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah.
I put something in there. I can't find it. Certain things I'll put in there, but oh no. I mean, it's all around where I get my hands on it from month to month. Then it might go in there.
Yeah. Same.
It's about retrieval.
Here. Yeah. Yep. You got to be able to recall on it and retrieve it at a moment's notice. Otherwise,
exactly. At a moment's notice.
Lost.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the more I think, in life, the more you practice, no matter what it is, whether you're practicing a technique, whether you're practicing knowledge, whether you're practicing, the more you practice it, the more it becomes second nature, and you don't have to it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you hear a drum groove, you know exactly what to play without thinking about it. It's become second nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, and I mean, that happens with anything in life.
Yes, it's never ending.
Yeah.
I want to turn your sound up. I'm losing your sound.
Is it
okay?
You're just a little bit quieter than you were.
Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay. When I opened up StreamYard earlier, it was switching over to my interface instead of my computer microphone.
Oh, gotcha.
So at some point we'll have to mess around with an external microphone, but we're not going to mess with that here.
Excuse me.
What's the name of your book?
Oh, the name of my book is I'm That Guy. The name of this book. This is The Bass in You.
Okay.
No, this is not The Bass in You. This is The Music in Everyone.
Yep.
It's a good book. It's a good book. It's my first book.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That graphic I showed you is in all of my books. The solar energy, that's in all of my books.
Okay.
Instructional books. But my memoirs is called I'm That Guy.
I'm that guy. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Check that out for sure.
Now,
it's not. I'm looking for a publisher, so you can't. You have to help you pick it up.
Oh.
All your listeners out there, no, we're looking for a publisher for it. Myself and Professor Knobloch, who happened to be one of my students at the Richard Davis conference 25 years ago. He's now a college professor, so he took on the role of being my editor. So we're pushing ahead.
Cool.
We're pushing ahead. It's a good book. He's a great writer. He has a great knowledge of music, great knowledge of socialism, social events. So he's really put it into a social context in terms of the time during the civil rights era when the book came up, Jim Crow, civil rights up until today. So it's historically relative to what's going on today for sure.
Yeah.
And it ties into music, my struggles as a human being and my success. And I hope it will inspire people.
I'm sure it will. Sure it will, sir. Yeah.
Judging by our comments, I think we've inspired some people today. Not us, you.
Okay.
I do know. Are you still doing lessons, Jerry? Do you take in students?
Oh yeah, I have a new high school student coming in. I think the thing is with this COVID, you can't see people. It's hard person to face, so it's all on the internet. But I've been doing internet teaching for years.
Okay.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's you can't play a duet.
Yeah.
It's just everything is call and response. Okay, you do this. Let me hear you do this. Okay, now do it this way. Try it this way. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, it definitely works, but it's not the same experience as sitting in front of your student or sitting in front of your teacher, and that instantaneous reaction, and like you said,
right.
playing duets with one another too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if anybody wanted to get in touch with you for lessons and stuff like that, could they just go to your website?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And same thing with your books if they wanted to.
Everything's on my website.
Perfect. And we'll I know it. We'll post the URL for your website here too, so people have access to that as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Man, Jerry, I know we're on the hour mark here, so I know we're going to probably cut it in a few seconds here, but man, I cannot think. First of all, it's great to see you. I know
you.
It's always great to see me.
You bring it, man. You bring it.
Nah, dude, thank you. It's like I said, it's been. Last time we saw each other was not this past January, but the January prior in Anaheim.
That's right.
And I was sick as a dog. That
I
was
remember.
that Saturday, and you'd even come in. You were like, "I don't care how sick you are, give me a hug, man. We'll figure it." It was like, and you slipped a couple of cough drops in my pocket, and that was it, man. It was like I was off the La La Land after that. But
oh man.
Yeah, seriously, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
such an honor.
We want to have you back at some point. Obviously, when
the book is published, I'll come back.
Please, absolutely,
sure.
That'd be a good catalyst for that because, obviously, when we're done with the whole COVID thing, the original intent of this broadcast was for Dom and I to get together with artists live one-on-one in Calabasas and not do thank God for StreamYard because we can do it this way now, but the original intent was to have an actual human interaction one-on-one in the studio in Calabasas. So when that happens, we're going to have you out to Calabasas and
all right,
and we'll sit down and break bread and have some fun. So
let's make it happen.
That
feels good. I think next year is going to be a good year for everybody. We're coming out of this. They say build back better. It's true. Yeah, when the body does that, we do it naturally. You have to. You have to.
Yeah.
Stronger, more resilient, more thoughtful.
Yeah, I think music's going to be more impactful too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think you're right. I think there's going to be some sort of a renaissance, kind of like what we saw, with music back in the late '60s too, with all the social issues that was going on then. Obviously now,
Yeah.
I think you'll see a renaissance and some music coming out. Some different music, shall I say? I won't say good or bad music because my kids will shoot me for that one. But anyways, last chance for anybody listening in or watching. If you wanna ask some questions here, be happy to post them up here. But we did post Jerry's website as well. Thank you for doing that, guys. And yeah, like I said, Jerry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hang tight. We're gonna end the broadcast here, but thank you as well, everyone, for checking in here and joining us. We love seeing the comments coming in. We had people from Switzerland, our friend Rafi from Switzerland, as well as I think there was another gentleman from Brazil. There were people calling in from all over the world, so it's good.
Great!
It's good to bring people together. Next, April 20th, just a quick plug, April 29th, we didn't have anything scheduled for SVT time, but we actually will probably have Chris Weiss come back because of the technical difficulties we had last interview with Chris. So I just pinged him yesterday. He said he'd be up for coming back on the 29th, so we'll have something up on the information page at some point. Letting everybody know when Chris is going to come back. But we're looking at April 29th for now. So,
cool.
All
I'll
right,
put it on my
everyone.
calendar.
Yeah.
I see a question here.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question. My favorite strings are Ken Smith Slick Rounds,
Okay.
medium gauge.
Cool. Interesting.
I've been using them for like the last 15, maybe 20 years.
Okay.
If you're an artist, he'll give you a good break.
There you go.
You gotta wine and dine Ken though for the good break because he. Now speaking of session guys, I know we're getting ready to end this here, but Ken Smith was a very accomplished New York session player.
That's right.
As well.
That's where I know him. Yeah, we did a lot of sessions. We see him a lot.
Yeah.
We had the same luthier, the same repairman. We can go on forever about repairmen now.
Oh, yeah. Especially in New York, of course. Man. Cool.
All right, man. Thank you for having me. To your audience, your fans, and the SVT. Carry on.
Right on. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.